The murder of two women in two different states within 24 hours, both by illegal immigrants that had been deported multiple times. Donald Trump lit the fuse, and America's burning with this debate. The Obama administration has been telling us time and time again about how they're training Syrian rebels to carry the fight on the ground. We now learn about the dismal failure of yet another Obama idea. There is perhaps no American celebrity that has gone from icon to dismal failure more completely than Bill Cosby, who can no longer hide behind muffled answers and assumptions of innocence. And in telling it like it is, fear. Why do we fear when we have the power to overcome our political yellow streak? Let us embolden you once again with no agenda and no fear whatsoever. I'm Ed Berliner. This is The Hard Line for Tuesday, July 7th, 2015.
A fatal shooting on a pier has San Francisco's immigration policy under scrutiny. Francisco Sanchez, a 45-year-old man from Mexico who's in the U.S. illegally, is accused of killing Catherine Steinle while she was out for a walk last Wednesday. San Francisco is one of dozens of cities that calls itself a sanctuary, meaning it doesn't fully cooperate with federal immigration authorities.
If there is one thing Donald Trump despises, it is being ignored. And there is no way his comments about illegal Mexican immigrants here in America will fade away anytime soon. And while Trump is being hammered for being insensitive, racist, and insulting, the conversation is beginning to drift in some areas to the point of honesty, potentially as blunt as a hammer dropping on his critics. The alleged murder of a 31-year-old woman in San Francisco by a man deported 5 times. The mother and her 2 small sons who narrowly escaped death when being slammed into by a car driven by an illegal who had been deported 6 times. They've become cornerstones of the new narrative Trump has raised, and many are beginning to notice. Our guest is a retired senior special agent with the Immigration and Naturalization Service, working closely with law enforcement agencies such as Customs, the ATF, FBI, and DEA. Welcome back, Michael Cutler. Michael, it's a pleasure to have you on the show again, and let's get right to it, because Donald Trump is the guy who started this. People have been picking up on it. He has been hammered by a lot of folks, but at the end of the day, has he opened up a debate here that people like yourself, right on the front lines, have been wanting the government and the people to address for a long time?
Absolutely, Ed. I couldn't have said it better myself. You know, our immigration laws are fundamental. They are essential to national security, public safety, and that's what the laws deal with. It's about keeping foreign nationals who have no inherent right to enter the United States out of our country. We do this as civilians, as ordinary citizens, and we look through the peephole before letting strangers into our homes. So Trump really is igniting a firestorm that's a long time coming.
What is it about the rules, the laws, the regulations that have handcuffed the INS people who want to get this done for so long, other than just the Obama administration? Because this is new, but not really. This has still been going on for a while.
It's been going on for decades, and it's about greed. It's about cheap labor. It's about the desire for huge numbers of foreign tourists to come to America, spend their money. It's about foreign students. We have over 1.1 million foreign students in the United States. And if you want to get politicians from either side of the aisle, I call them the repugnant cans and the Democrats, I'm fed up with all of them, ask them why their talks about immigration don't include the findings of the 9/11 Commission, to which, by the way, I provided testimony.
But what about the illegals themselves and the felonies that they commit? Because, look, being deported 5 times, 6 times, this is getting ridiculous. They have been in custody before. Why is it that the INS, Division of Homeland Security, people can't just grab them, jail them, or get rid of them once and for all and make sure they don't get back into the country?
Well, you're 100% right. And back in the 80s, I worked with then New York Senator Al D'Amato to create a law that made unlawful reentry for criminal aliens a federal crime with a maximum punishment of up to 20 years in jail. The problem is laws mean nothing if we don't enforce them. And the emphasis on the Mexican border has ignored an even more serious problem, and that's the problem of not enforcing our immigration laws from within the interior of the United States.
The Obama administration wants to hasten the integration of these long-term undocumented immigrants into society rather than targeting them for deportation. Is this, in your opinion, again, somebody who's been on the front lines, one of the most dangerous and misguided things that a government could possibly do when it comes to people coming into this country that are here for no other reason than perhaps make a couple of bucks, but are still here to commit crimes?
Well, we don't know why they're here. They ran the border. We have an inspections process that's supposed to be conducted at ports of entry, and I began my 30-year career with the INS as an inspector for 4 years before I became an agent. The goal is to keep out criminals, terrorists, spies, human rights violators, and we have no way of knowing how long an illegal alien has been here. You know, when we hear this nonsense, well, if they've been living here for X number of years, do you know that the Obama administration, with their dreamers, has provided hundreds of thousands of illegal aliens, some of whom have gone on to commit crimes, and there's not even a face-to-face interview or a field investigation. So how do you know if someone's been here 7 years or 7 days? The answer is there's no way of knowing.
I want you to hear this. San Francisco Sheriff Ross Mirkarami says that Donald Trump appears to be taking advantage of the recent killing of a woman by a Mexican man who was in the United States illegally. It's the case that we have talked about here. Here's Sheriff's comments.
Donald Trump, I think, is an opportunist. And I believe that he's really trying to capitalize on the misfortune of the situation. And I think that that's really unfortunate.
What do you think, Michael?
Where's the chronology? Which came first, the chicken or the egg? Who spoke first? What happened first? It was Trump who spoke about illegal immigration, and then we had that terrible murder. But, you know, it's not just about Mexicans. We have 50 border states in the United States. Any state with an international airport or seaport lies along both borders. And it's not about Mexicans or Latinos. As an immigration agent, I can tell you that I spent years investigating aliens involved with criminal activity from every country on the planet. Half my career was with the Drug Task Force. And you should know that back in the 80s, when I was assigned to DEA intelligence, we found that 30% of individuals arrested by DEA for drug trafficking were foreign born. In New York City, 60%. And in fact, last year, DEA seized the greatest amount of heroin in New York State. So this is a problem that permeates the country. It's not just about Mexico, but Mexico goes probably further than any other country to encourage their citizens to enter our country in violation of law so they can send money home. Every year they get about $25 billion in remittances. It amounts to 10% of the GNP of Mexico.
Now, the reason why this guy was on the streets in San Francisco is what they call, in part, because of what they call a sanctuary city. There's no legal definition of this. For a city, county, or state, it all varies from place to place. In San Francisco, there's a 1989 law called the City and County of Refuge Ordinance. It prohibits city employees from helping federal immigration enforcement efforts unless compelled by court order or state law. When you read it that way, it sounds frightening to people because now you have the feds, you've got a reason to come in, you know you got somebody, but just because someone locally decides that they don't want to cooperate, they don't have to. Michael, that's dangerous at its core.
Absolutely dangerous at its core. It flies in the face of common sense. And if you look at the law that says it's a felony to aid, abet, encourage, induce, harbor, or shield aliens, doesn't it sound awfully like that? I'm working on an article for Front Page Magazine, and I'm calling it violent sanctuaries. Isn't that a contradiction in terms? This is about harboring people whose true identities and backgrounds are unknown and unknowable. Shouldn't public safety trump everything else?
You mentioned Trump in there, so with about a minute left, let's once again go to Donald Trump, oddly enough, because in your opinion then, has he may have not said it correctly. Some people say that, well, maybe he went, but wait a minute, let's get to the core of what he was getting to. Did he get it right that this is something, an issue that America has to be concerned with? The felons, whether they're Mexican, whether they're Albanian, anything else that are in this country that can do things that can kill Americans.
Absolutely. And if you look at the 9/11 Commission report, it was the failures of the immigration system, first and foremost, that enabled those terrorists to enter our country and hide themselves in plain sight. Clearly, he's right. We've got to change the dynamics. And he's the first guy to have the guts. And by the way, what I love is he's not backing down. How many politicians become weather vanes and blow with the wind or blow with the poles? He's standing his ground, and I certainly appreciate that he's doing that.
10 seconds, real quick. You don't think this will get solved until somebody else is in the White House, do you?
No, absolutely not. We know what this administration's agenda is about, but the Republicans have not done well with this either. We need a president who puts Americans ahead of all else.
And we have to make sure that those people who are here, they do a crime, they pay the time, they get out, and they stay out. That's what Americans really want for their own safety. Michael Cutler, always a pleasure, my friend. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll talk soon.
Absolutely. Thanks for
All
having
right,
me.
coming up next, we have to talk about this and a whole lot more. The political animal is next. Stay with us right here on the fastest 60 minutes in news, The Hardline.